at least we have put forth the effort, and that's going to leave a little bit of gratitude towards the Planning and Zoning or City Council for our
I
project.
think if it was noted in the staff report that would make a difference, whether somebody did it or not.
I think it would be a strong recommendation from the Planning and Zoning that we do that from day one on our pre-application meetings, and firmly stating on every single checklist that they give us on changes that they recommend, strongly recommending that we have that. And as well as if we do have a meeting, I think it would be wise to have at least some type of a city official go to it, whether it's planning and zoning or city council member for those.
A staff member, and usually the city council representatives from the district I know would probably go. So that would probably be our recommendations. And number one, that somehow it's going to be noted in your checklist that it's encouraged by staff, and that there's some kind of notation about whether the developer met with the residents or did not meet with the adjacent homeowners in the staff report. And that way that kind of addresses your concern where we could track it, because we'll be able to see as projects come forward, did they meet or did they not meet. So I think the idea, rather than mandatory, hopefully by doing it this way, you're correct. Eventually it's hopefully going to be, everyone goes through it and meets with the residents, because it's going to cut down on their time and probably a lot less controversy if they address the neighbors' concerns before they ever get to the planning
Now,
commission.
if single family faces single family, it's a completely
We're
different
just
situation. But if
basing
you're
this on
going
multifamily.
multifamily, then yeah.
Okay, and then which zonings, our question was whether Lee Summit and Olathe, we are going to have a lot of different categories for multifamily, and our question was which ones are used most frequently? And you all were going to call Olathe and Lee Summit then? Yeah.
In Lee Summit, the RP3 and RP4 were most commonly used for apartments, which would be the medium and high density within their code. And the RP2 was just most commonly used for townhomes, which stands to reason. Overall, in Lee Summit, RP3 seemed to be the most commonly used zoning for multifamily.
The medium density.
Yeah.
The low density was not, which we were going to use for garden. Remember what the question was about the
Right.
garden apartments? Has that been used much?
It has been used. It has been used, but it has not. It's not the one that's used the most in Lee Summit. And the same goes for Olathe. Again, there's that medium density RP3 that's used most commonly for both apartments and townhomes, because within their code they can go up to 8 units in a linear row.
So the RPs are used, the residential plan,
Yes.
not the PUD?
No. And neither Lee Summit nor Olathe have PUD.
It's number 3.
Yeah, at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay, and it's all planned. They're, within the Olathe code, you can have the option of R2 and RP2, and I was told by a planner there on staff at Planning and Assuries that it's never used anymore, the R2, it's all RP.
I can understand that.
Yeah, because of the incentives and the flexibility.
So they've done away with the PUD then?
They have done away
Because
with.
here, I can see we're going to be using the PUD every single time.
Yeah, or they just absorbed it into their zoning.
They absorbed it into their zoning,
Is what
so that they
the
have is
RP,
called.
and the P is the P,
Yeah.
essentially.
What they have is called planned districts in Olathe. And those planned districts are not, as Sheree said, comparable to our existing PUD code, but that's what it kind of evolved into with their new code system. Lee Summit, the same sort of deal. They no longer have a PUD at all. Instead, what they have is called a P-mix, which is mixed use. So, it
And
incorporates
that's
mixed use.
frequently used, or?
It's been used twice
Oh,
in
really?
in the downtown area of Lee Summit so far.
But is their P-mix only classified in certain areas in their comprehensive plan, or?
Our comp plan.
I'm just wondering if the P-mix is only able to use in certain areas, or?
Like just in certain areas, Lee Summit?
Yeah.
No, you can, if you buy a property and if it's large enough and it's approved to be able to be used as mixed use, there can be numerous uses in there, it can't be a P-mix. It would be like a PUD except it's mixed use. Yeah.
So how does all this difference in terminology come about? Well, here you've got 3 different communities that are using different terminology, kind of saying the same thing, but why is that? Why isn't there more uniformity in terms of how this works?
Well, the primary difference between Blue Springs and as a group, Lee Summit and Olathe, is that both Lee Summit and Olathe are adopting what's called form-based code, which we discussed briefly a couple weeks ago, and Tom Williams covered a little bit today in the presentation. But the fact that they're moving into more of a form-based code is...
So what you're saying is we're behind.
We're behind. We're
Our
behind.
Unified Development Code is 12 years old.
It's
Yeah.
outdated.
Yeah.
So by us adopting the new zoning practices and quality standards, we'll be going with the times and doing what other communities are doing.
Somewhat, a little bit.
Partially, the
Yeah.
multifamily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least the multifamily, and probably one of our recommendations to the council is gonna be that they move towards updating the codes for single family also. I mean, we're doing it
I
on
would hope if
multifamily, but,
we want to be competitive, we want to be current, hopefully we reflect more within our codes what we're seeing in other like or communities that we would like to be
And-
similar to.
And there's plenty of ways to go about it. You don't have to throw out the baby with the proverbial bathwater, so that you can do hybrid codes, you can incorporate it over time, and get everybody used to the new way of looking at codes and the new way of looking at zoning, and put in, we can go through a hybridization process. Is that even a hybridization
It works.
process? It works. So it won't be such a shocking change
And you
necessarily.
be spoon fed a little bit of time on
Right.
Is that was that article?
Yes,
about
the hybrid
yeah.
zoning. It was a little bit about that, but it was
Yeah.
a little bit more about something else.
Okay.
What's staff's recommendation as far as PUD? Doing what, or absorbing it within this new code with the RPs? Or still having it, which I think is kind of be a conflict because we're always going to go with the PUD if it's still out there for multifamily.
Well, I think it's a holistic thing. You can't just take it out for multifamily because that completely unravels the entire thing.
Right.
So I think we need to keep it in there, and that's what we were discussing, kind of what we call these districts. But I think that is pretty low on the level of discussion at this point. I mean, RP or R doesn't matter as much as in the
Yeah.
code. I mean, that's what we're coming up to.
you're still gonna
next.
need your base zoning, because your PUD is going to have to comply with what base zoning standards are. So
Sure.
if we adopt new base zoning standards, you're automatically gonna be changing what the PUD
Mhm.
approval process is, because your
Sure.
base zoning is gonna be
Right.
changing. I don't know if that answers your question, but you're automatically, like you were saying, it may be not be such a dramatic process, but the developers are used to dealing with the PUD concept plan. So you don't wanna, but they're initially gonna have to get used to the new zoning and the new standards, but they can still work within the confines of the PUD concept plan. But eventually, we're probably gonna be, I would imagine, incorporating like other communities into an RP standard. But what you're saying is we can kind of ease into it
Yeah.
slowly
So
instead of
you're going to
quickly.
ease in and trying to phase out the PUD.
If we're gonna go
as the code
reflect what other
starts.
communities are doing, probably.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
probably
it's,
where we'll be headed.
and we would have other things in place that would replace a PUD.
Right.
Eventually, over time, that just reflects form-based code.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so you would
That's
still.
kind of what Tom was talking about too, again, looking at the individual buildings is what a PUD does versus the whole thing.
Okay.
Corridor.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna still, you don't wanna take away something they're still comfortable with. So I think if you change the base zoning, you're accomplishing your goals without removing the PUD, and I think.
At this stage.
At this stage. As far as examples, I was talking to Mr. Williams, we're gonna try and set up some kind of a field trip for next week. We'll ask them to incorporate Arbor Walk and Avignon.
I visited Arbor Walk last weekend, so I have a pretty idea what they're talking about in terms of that.
And he was gonna have the developer for some of the projects in Lee Summit walk us through and actually tell us what components worked and what components didn't work. So I will have him work with staff and we'll set up some kind of a field trip for us all to go and look at